Good people of BK, I'm Angela-Renee Coakley, host of Be Real on BK Live, where we have real conversations with A-listers and influencers in arts, media, and entertainment. In the studio today, we have one of the most innovative and provocative multidisciplinary artists of his time, a Morehouse graduate, TED Fellow, Ivy League professor, musician, and an activist, and his works have been featured in the Studio Museum of Harlem, our very own Brooklyn Museum, as well as many others internationally. Let's welcome the Rome 2017 prize winner, Sanford Biggers, to Be Real. Thank you for coming, Sanford. I'm so happy to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
I know you're not a Brooklynite. We stole you from Harlem, but it's okay. So your work is really incredible, beautiful artistry, but behind the artistry are really powerful messages that are provoking us to think about social issues, political issues. We have a photo of your design, Lotus. Tell us about Lotus. What is that?
Okay, so Lotus is a 7.5-foot diameter glass disc that when you walk up to it, it basically looks like a lotus blossom. And the lotus is a Buddhist symbol for purity, wholeness, peace, calm. But you also know the lotus comes from the muck and the mire of a pond or a lake and then rises to the top
right.
to its full beauty. But this particular lotus, when you get closer, you start to see all the petals of the lotus are actually cross-sections of slave ships.
Yeah.
And these petals were hand-etched.
Photo of that too.
Mm-hmm, yeah, it was all hand-etched. There's over 6,000 figures in those ships on this sculpture. So it really talks about the horrendous tribulation, obviously, of Middle Passage and slavery, but in the format of this lotus blossom or this mandala, it offers sort of a peace and reconciliation for that traumatic past.
Yeah, but when you look at it, it's so beautiful, then go closer and you're like, wow.
Well, it's also a metaphor for sort of the life we live and, even the country we live in sometimes. So beautiful, so much potential, but often so set back and, sometimes remedial.
Out of the ashes, yeah. Some of your latest work is in direct relationship to what's happening in the country with police brutality and racial profiling. And I think we have a clip I want you to talk about, okay? And tell us what prompted you to create it. Let's look at the clip.
So basically what you've just seen is a clip from a project that I call simply BAM.
Yeah.
And what I've been doing is collecting wooden African sculptures that I find at street markets, flea markets, art fairs, you name it, all over the world. I've been collecting them for many, many years. Some of them are very authentic and old. Some of them actually could have been made literally 2 or 3 weeks ago and painted with shoe polish. Once I collect all of those sculptures, I cover them in a thick brown wax to make them more obscure, to make them look basically all the same.
All the same, okay.
And then I take them to a shooting range where I then sculpt them ballistically. So I'm using different gauge, different caliber weapons to shoot and modify and take away parts of the body. Wow. And once that happens, I take the remnants and I cast them in bronze. So yeah, obviously the piece is commenting a bit on police violence against black citizens.
Yes.
But it's not a recent phenomenon. The work is not coming from a recent place at all. It's actually going back into our history.
Now, if I understand, something happened when you were creating, maybe the first piece, I'm not sure, with BAM for Michael Ferguson, right? And you were at the shooting range and you were supposed to shoot, and what happened?
Right, yeah, so we were there and, I sort of planned this whole shoot in my mind and I was going to get behind the gun and actually shoot the figure. Yeah. And then I realized that I couldn't pull the trigger. Somehow it ended up being an effigy of myself, of many of the black men that I knew. And in my own way, I felt like it was putting a sort of a bad mojo on the work by continuing this sort of a black-on-black approach, violence approach to the work. So my cameraman luckily was able to pull the trigger without as much baggage as I had on it. It's a problematic and challenging work, and it's gut-wrenching for me to make it, but at the same time, it's gut-wrenching for me to hear these stories.
And it's gut-wrenching for us to watch it. I mean, even though that clip was only 16 seconds, it was just heart-wrenching. Right. And there's several of those, right? You've created several for Sandra Bland, Michael Ferguson, and the like.
I made one for Emmett Till, Philando, Sandra, Tamir, on down the line. Obviously, the unfortunate thing is these names don't stop.
That's amazing. You're a Morehouse man, as they say. It seems I read somewhere that they didn't have art classes at Morehouse, which is the men's school, and they had art classes at Spelman, and you had to take art classes there. What was that like?
It wasn't too bad, actually.
Considering, right? Yeah.
Yeah, at the time when I was at Morehouse, obviously, they didn't really have an art program.
Yeah.
So I did have to cross-register and take my classes at Spelman. But that also afforded me to make a very close relationship with Frank Toby Martin, who was the sculpture professor there, who gave me keys to the studio. He knew that I was very serious about making work. And he took me under his wing as an apprentice, found me jobs to work for other sculptors. So it really furthered my education.
Well, I want to talk about something because Bill Cosby was a major donor for Spelman College, and you created a piece. We don't have a clip, but we have a photo. Talk about that piece. It looks like you know, a prone Fat Albert. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so that piece is, once again, also very sort of challenging and disturbing, but the piece is called La Aquawan. And La Aquawan is, we're all very familiar with the story of the Trojan Horse.
Yes.
Well, the Trojan Horse, of course, was a gift of the Greeks given to the Trojans or the Romans. And of course, there were soldiers in there to then sack the city.
Yes.
Now, La Aquawan was the priest who warned the Romans of the danger of the Trojan horse. Of course, the Romans didn't listen, and consequently, La Aquawan was killed.
Right.
He was punished by the gods. Now, this is where it gets interesting. In history, they say different gods punished him, and he was punished for various things. But in the end of the day, he was ultimately punished for being correct about the warning. And I think about Fat Albert as being sort of that La Aquawan in the hood, basically. When we were growing up, you would watch Fat Albert, and he would warn you of things.
About different things, yeah.
Try to keep you on the right path. But with the consequence of all the things that have been happening with the killing of black citizens, as well as what has happened with Cosby. For me, it was a moment of seeing a conflation of all these imageries of black men just being, either brought down by their own, actions or the actions of others.
So you've been teaching, and I hear you're getting ready to travel. What's new? What's next for you? Tell us about it.
Well, there's a lot going on. I'm going to have a very significant exhibition at Marianne Boesky Gallery in Chelsea, opening September 7th. So make sure you all come to that.
And then
then I'm moving to Rome for a year to do the Rome Prize at the American Academy.
Nice.
I'll be there for an entire year, making new work. But I also have some work here in the city right now.
Okay.
I have some work at the Met.
Yeah.
A show called Talking Pictures, a collaboration that I did with another Brooklynite, Sean Peters, also another Morehouse man.
And a Morehouse man, yes. Okay, cool. So here's a fun part, right? I call it the B-roll rundown, just quick things about Brooklyn that we want to know. So your favorite MC from Brooklyn?
Oh, man, wow. Ooh, wow.
Did I stump you?
You did. There's so much to consider.
Pick one.
I'm going to have to say Biggie right now. He's coming up right off the bat.
Your favorite Brooklyn hangout?
Well, I enjoy BAM. That's one
right.
place that I enjoy. Let's see. Where else have I been? Brooklyn Museum. I always go there.
Favorite Brooklyn art space?
Brooklyn Museum.
All right. All right. Thank you so much, Sanford. Thank you for that. Be sure to check out Sanford's show at the Boesky Gallery. Thank you so much for sharing with us, Sanford.
My pleasure.
And thank you for watching Be Real on BK Live.